What's going on? It's your boy, DameSmiff, and we're gonna have a quick chat about guns and stuff because this is America and we love our guns over here, right? I'm actually not a gun owner, so this is gonna be a learning experience for me where we're gonna actually go over a video where a veteran gunsman, what do you call a guy who's a gun enthusiast? What's the word, right? Put it in the comments. Is it a gunsmith? No, they make guns. Is it a gunman? Or is that just the guy that shoots? I don't know. Let me know. I got to learn all this stuff. I'm a beginner. But if you're interested in conversations like this, make sure you hit the like button because basically that'll show all the new people and all the people who love this type of content that this content exists. And also hit the subscribe button so that way you can catch my latest stuff. So the key thing about this topic is a lot of musicians and artists and things like that, you guys want to be great. You want to have a big, careers and be all famous and stuff like that. So unless you plan on playing at your church the rest of your life, you're going to have to defend your assets, right? You're going to have to protect your things, right? And so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out and be Batman, but there is a necessary understanding of the world you live in, right? And so like I said, for me, I am not a gun owner, right? I don't have a gun, but the conversation about guns was never one I shied away from because I have parents in the military. I've known people that own guns and things like that. I've seen guns. I've been to a gun range, so I've fired a weapon before. I know how to reload a little bit, So the thing about guns and weaponry and things like that, I think it's more of a mental thing. I think people's attachment to weapons and things like that are coming from a place of either fear, trauma, or in my case, it was just a lack of understanding. I had no attraction to learn about guns because I didn't know what to learn about guns. I thought people who needed a gun were like cops and military people or people who own, land and shit. Like I didn't think you just a regular guy, you need a gun. So so I just had no attraction to learn. So when people are like anti-gun, it makes me think, well, what would you, if there was a person pointing a gun at you, why would you be like, I don't want a gun right now? That was the thing that always popped in my head. But again, not being a gun owner, I was in a weird space to kind of like not have a position on the controversy. So we're going to look at a video a little bit later about like explaining the best ways to spot an amateur shooter. And I think it's going to be important because we see a lot of guns in movies and things like that. John Wick was a big one recently that came out, and it got a lot of gun enthusiasts happy and got a lot of people into, getting to the range and learning about weapons and things like that, which I think is a great thing. The only problem that I have is that when I have conversations with people about guns, at least, the casual person or whatever, they don't really think about the target. And I think that's the weird part to me because my exposure and introduction to weaponry and things like that was the United States military. Like a rifle wasn't really fired. It was kind of like treated like a tool when they were spinning it, or they would break them down into pieces and then rebuild them back up. And then you would see like the science behind what makes the trajectory of a bullet work, the history of weapons from wars and battles and things like that. So that's how I was introduced to weapons. But it seems like when I was having conversations with people casually about guns, it was like they just wanted to make sure they could shoot something when they needed to shoot something. And they didn't really know what it was that they would shoot. So then as I started to get older, it was like, all right, so then why are all the people getting shot and not like the scary monsters and stuff like that? Like it was weird. Like that was the only weird part. But I think when I think about ownership and getting a gun and putting it to use even, I myself personally, just like I talk all the time in this channel, I put a lot of responsibility on myself as far as the accountability that comes with the ownership of something that's serious, right? So like let's take something like my music, right? I wouldn't just start dropping music on this YouTube channel. I just wouldn't do that. People do it. I watch y'all do it all the time. I see y'all on TikTok, y'all hit live and then just start busking for hours and don't make any money. It's wild to me, but I see y'all do it. And so I personally wouldn't do it, and here's why. It's because I have given myself because it's not something that anybody has given me, but I have given myself the responsibility to give you a complete product. So if I don't feel that if it's not finished, I won't release it. And even if it is finished, finished has to look a certain way. So just because a song has an intro, verse, chorus, bridge out, doesn't mean that it's done, in my opinion. Just because a song is mastered is not done, in my opinion. Okay. And that's developed over time. Like that, I used to have that mindset, like, oh shit, song's done, let's upload it, let's see what people think. But after a while, like with this current album I'm working on, there's a certain like way I need you to consume this, and it's gonna have to take intention. It's gonna have to take pressure. Like I'm gonna have to like meet a certain standard for myself and maybe for you. And so I place that on myself as an individual. The thing is that may not be true for you. You may look at your music as like, oh, I just want to drop that shit. Like for example, a really, really professional version of this would be Currency, the rapper Currency. He, at least in my opinion, is a high volume artist. Flea Lord is another one. Another high volume artist. Tech Nine, another high volume artist. Yeah, like these artists on a high quality level are putting out a lot of music, okay? Versus, let's say the typical stereotype of a SoundCloud or Instagram musician, right? Their virality is more important to them. So the virality that they're chasing isn't really bound in the music fan. It's more bound in the social media experience. So for a lot of people, when they start making music, they want an immediate response, similar to what you would get in the 90s, where like you would drop a Prince album and then, you know, the world would know by the following Monday whether or not it was a flop or not. But the issue with that is that we don't consume music the same way. So now a lot of people lack the intention behind their music. Like this album I'm working on, I've been working on, it's August now. Yeah. Going on like 7 months, right? And when you hear it, it may not be a lot just because you just consume music so quickly, so often, so commonly. Like if I wrote an hour-long album, you will burn that in an hour. Like you'll be done. And whether or not you come back to it is a different conversation. But yeah, you'll experience that in an hour, and all the 7 months, 8, maybe 9 months that's going into this is not going to matter to you, right? And you probably wouldn't even want to pay for it. You probably want to download it and leak it or just stream it off of YouTube for free. And I just get AdSense. And so that right there is why I prefer to not put out high volume of music with low quality, because I'd rather that hour that you spend with my album be something where like you go, okay, I'm going to support the next one, or I need more of this, you know, versus you spend an hour with me like in a podcast and then you expect more tomorrow. Like, no. That's not how this works. This is fine dining here. Okay. This takes time. So that's my intention. That's how I view it. That's me. If we were to move that over to what we're talking about today, weaponry, I view it the same way. If I were to get a pistol, I want to know what it is, how it works, why it works. I want to know, you know, the efficiency behind it. Should I be using it? Is it industry standard? And then I'm going to practice with it. I need to be just like in the gym. I have to have a regimen, some kind of coach or system or plan that I'm following that's helping me scale or improve or at least track my progress as far as how well I can handle this instrument, which would be the gun in this case, right? And so that's me going into that with my personal mindset, because I do the exact same thing with my music. So if I were to get, like, I have a guitar given to me by my grandfather, I'm looking for lessons, like actively looking for them. I'm not just, you know, waiting on some kind of miracle, or I'm not going to avoid using it like a lot of people say about guns. Like I'm just not gonna be anti-guitar. I'm gonna actually, you know, participate. Now the intention behind it and the urgency is key for how successful I'm going to be when it's time to use it. So like tomorrow, if you ask me to play a gig or get on stage, and I was listening to Cameo today, they had some amazing guitar solos. If you ask me to get on stage with Cameo, I'm going to flop because I haven't practiced. I haven't done none of that. So if we were to move this conversation over to weaponry, the same concept kind of consistently stays here. Like if you gave me a gun and I wasn't practicing, I didn't know how to load it, didn't know how to reload it, clean it, I didn't know what it is, I would use it improperly, if not hurt someone or myself, right? So that's key when we're thinking about like musicians and rappers and artists and things like that. Everybody want to buy guns. Everybody can name them in their songs. Everybody's got Glocks, Ops, and AKs, right? But you see none of them at the range. You see, usually when they get a little older and they've dodged a couple shots, they start to think, all right, maybe I want to start, aiming up. But I've been playing Call of Duty and Halo for a while, man. This is how I aim, all right? So we're going to learn really quickly, or at least, yeah, it'll be pretty quickly. We're going to learn a little bit about how to spot an amateur shooter, and we're going to have a veteran shooter show us. Now, this is actually from a channel that I just found because it was just kind of educational, and it's called Hickok 45 Clips. And they have 309 subscribers, so they're pretty good as far as, YouTube and things like that. But it's going to be a fun, interesting video because I think a lot of the things that he may point out are going to be things that we don't think about, or maybe things that you probably already do if you are currently a gun owner. One of the things somebody said to me before we get into this is that if you've never fired a weapon before and you go to a trainer or a coach or a school or an academy, that's the best way to learn. If you're some kid in the street and somebody wants to just put a pistol in your hand, that's the worst way to learn. If you're, some lady and you're scared about going out in the streets by yourself and you go into Walmart, that's the worst way to learn. So it's one of the things that they've told me is that if you want to learn as a newbie, get into some kind of like class, academy, and practice. Run drills, do everything you need. Spend the money. It's an investment. It's like a gym membership.
Model we've not done a video with. I mean, it's hard to Hickok 45 here, and I know you can't believe it, but we have yet another Glock model we've not done a video with. I mean, it's hard to believe all the Glocks I have that you've not seen every single one of them in a video somewhere. Well, today's the day. We're going to do another. We got John behind the camera. He always does a great job with the camera, as he does everything, and he's going to capture the new Glock model you've not seen.
Okay, so again, I'm not a gun owner, so you're seeing me in real time, kind of like, oh shit, like notice things, right? My experience with guns is highly limited. Like I said, I've been to the range once with my father and his friends, right? His coworkers and friends. And so other than that, that's pretty much it. Like I'm not in the streets doing, gangster shit. But I've noticed, because of that minimal amount of experience I've had with guns, the little bit of reading I've done, or the tidbits of information video games give you, my man's has amazing trigger discipline. And of course, it could be just because of his age and experience and things like that. But he's moving in a way with this weapon that I can tell his brain is locked on to that. Now, you may not notice it if you're not. Clearly, we're looking for how to spot an amateur shooter. So like my mind is kind of like lighting up different things. But you may not notice that if you've never tried to like analyze sports footage, or if you've never tried to watch a replay of like a dancer or a ballet. There's things the mind does with the body that if you don't practice it, it loses the connection. It's called a neural connection. I believe I'm saying that right. And your muscles, all through, from your face to your eyes to even your organs on the inside, they connect to your brain to communicate through your spine to send these signals out. So like what I'm saying is, as a super nerd, is that I can see visually his brain sending signals to that finger to control this weapon, which is, going through the rest of his body. But it's amazing to see because of how fine, it's amazing to see because of how fine the movement is. So this would be like noticing a certain pivot on a ballet dancer's foot, or maybe noticing a certain, angle on a jump shot and things like that. That's pretty much what I noticed when I first looked at that. All right, so let's continue.
And let me see, I've got my ears on. And if you don't see anything strange about this video yet, this video is for you.
Okay, that shit was wild. But bro's got earplugs too. That was one of the big things at the fire range I visited for the first time. Definitely want ear protection. Now, they say ear protection, right? I've been on what's called a hop before. It's a plane that the military uses to transport, resources and troops and stuff like that, right? And I've been on it to we were basically taking one to get to another station or base where we were stationed at, my parents were stationed at. And so they gave us earplugs then. It's basically just to kind of dull the noise. That's what ear protection does, because that's my experience with ear protection, putting in earplugs for airplanes and maybe concerts. That's like a good level. If your first time experiencing ear protection is with firearms, let me tell you, it dulls the sound. It's a very loud bang. And there's two things that happens with sound. And I love that this is a conversation we can have here on this channel, because musicians should understand this. My engineers, you probably know what I'm about to say. But the thing that's going to happen, because when I had my experience at the gun range, there was a man there firing a rifle. I don't remember the rifle, but it was a wooden rifle, like a hunting rifle. It was loud, very, very loud. I had ear protection in, and it was still loud. Like, not loud in the sense like, oh, that's loud. It was like jolting, like every shot was noticed and felt. And the key thing here is that it's felt too. Gunfire is, at least in my opinion, person who's more veteran with guns could probably explain it better, but it's like a small explosion, right? And so what happens is the sound goes everywhere, and the ear protection helps that sound when it goes into your tiny little ear canal. It dulls that, it like muffles it so that so much energy doesn't rupture your eardrum. So like, for example, that guy firing a rifle, he's holding it, so he's like right above the booms, the very loud booms. So his ears are getting the first blast of energy very quickly, and our thin little tiny little eardrum is just going to vibrate like a real drum head. And if it's too harsh, it could create damage. It could, injure it, just like muscles and things like that. We talk about muscles on this channel. But the ear protection thing, it was a very funny experience, because I thought, at least as a young kid, that like when you put earmuffs in, it was gonna just damn near muffle 90, if not 90% of the sound. No, it's like 60, 70, 40 maybe. And like, it was every shot was like boom, boom, boom. It wasn't that fast, but it was like very loud. And then I guess the last thing I could tell you too is sound has a physical like presence. That's why when you watch Jurassic Park, the famous scene where the water is vibrating and things like that, that's how sound kind of moves. Sound functions like that, literally through space. So like, as I'm talking through this mic, there's a thing in this microphone that's receiving the energy it's hitting and sending it through the cables out to your ears, and your ears are doing the same thing. Now, there's a whole bunch of cool magic and nature going on that turns this into why you can understand my voice and things like that. But the awesome thing was taught to me through these earmuffs was that while that guy was shooting that rifle, I could feel every shot. Like, it was like, poof, poof. You could feel each one.
Yeah, you see, there's a strange opening on the front end of this firearm, right? That's because it's an airsoft, okay? It really feels strange pointing a firearm at you, especially at John, right? Look at this thing. Not only is it an airsoft, it's an unloaded airsoft gun with no mag.
So, again, I'm not a gun owner. How many of you would have known how to pull that slide back? Little information like that. Because for most people, not most people, for some people, your older cousin or older brother handed you a gun and he just did that shit, and he probably like, yeah, you just do it that way, right? There's a reason you would do that, and he's showing us, what's inside of it, basically showing us that it's an empty weapon. But when you see it in the movies, people just clicking it back and forth. This is how we get misinformation on how to improperly use things. And I see it from, guns to, if I wanted to keep it related to musicians, I see people using trumpets and trombones, all kinds of wrong in the movies, especially guitars. Y'all have ruined guitar playing in most films. But he's basically breaking down how to move the little thing around, how to make sure it's empty.
On, right? Look at this thing. Not only is it an airsoft, it's an unloaded airsoft gun with no magazine. So, yeah, the topic today, as you can tell from the title, is about pointing your gun, your pistol, your rifle, your shotgun, okay? Muzzle discipline, all right? Some people don't, at least it makes a sound, and some people don't have any muscle discipline, or at least enough. I say muzzle discipline, maybe muscle discipline either. Maybe it does come down to muscles. It does come down to this muscle between the ears that we've got to exercise. I took the orange off of it there just for dramatic effect, okay?
So he mentioned it right there, what I was saying earlier. The muscle he's talking about is actually in his head, and it's so that you can be that much in control of your body. When people are moving around life and you're just walking, talking, eating, shitting, and farting, you're not really thinking about it. Like, you're not telling yourself, inhale, exhale, blink, blink, scratch your ass, blink. Like, you're not doing that, right? But what he's saying is that there are certain movements and habits that you have to train your mind to tell your body, because your mind can literally control any part of it. If you've ever seen a ballerina, a dancer, a monk, a yogi, people doing amazing things with their body where like they can contort into weird positions or maybe hold a lot of weight or hold a certain balancing pose, it takes practice. Now, the thing that they're practicing is not so much physical as it is mental. They're teaching their body to tell these muscles to do a certain thing. And, they could be resisting gravity. They could be resisting tension from tighter muscles and things like that. You have to continuously practice over and over and over again to get through these obstacles.
Take a little license, being the Hollywood types we are. Yeah, just an airsoft gun. Again, that was a very strange feeling for me doing what I was doing there. If you noticed, I was sweeping John, I was sweeping my foot.
And right there, again, because I'm looking for it, he pointed out sweeping John, which is the cameraman, sweeping his foot. That's something a lot of people don't think about, especially in the movies. Video games would be a good way for people to miss this. That barrel is like a laser out that gun. That thing is deadly. It's just waiting to send anybody to the maker. And so if you're sweeping, as he called it, just right around your friend, it's possible that you could hit him here, 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 here. It just keeps going and going. And you'll learn this as like you start watching like crime shows and things like that, how detectives and things like that have to look at angles and trajectory and things like that. It can get that serious. And then of course different surfaces, bounce objects, and it can get crazy. So in order to control that, you have to train that brain to understand all of these things, at least quickly. You don't have to be a master, but you have to be able to understand this stuff if you want to be, a disciplined shooter.
Putting my ears on with a gun stuck in my head.
Yeah, like that's crazy. Putting the ears on with the gun stuck in the head. That there's plenty of accidents that have gone wrong.
I know it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but then again, not so much, unfortunately. Yeah, we've all seen people sweep themselves with the muzzle, sweep their feet, and even do that, pick it up and put their ears on the gun, either almost pointed at their head or pointed at their head, all right? And I don't know of anybody, well, maybe I do, who has a head so hard that a bullet will bounce off of it, okay? Not wise. So muzzle discipline, in all seriousness now, it is one of the biggest problems, I think, regarding gun safety is muzzle discipline. There's others, of course, trigger finger discipline. This is serious business.
So he actually just identified two different disciplines. And when people mention disciplines, we could probably go into this in another video. They kind of mention like practices, studies, and things like that. So when he said muzzle discipline versus trigger discipline, let's say, for example, muzzle discipline would be like what he's talking about, sweeps. Like if you were to have a firearm in your hand or something like that, and you walk into, God forbid, a grocery store or something like that, you don't want to be like, excuse me, ma'am, can you point me to the milk? Like, you don't want to do that, right? So muzzle discipline, where this thing is pointed, like we have to have some kind of practice on where this is going to be pointed as far as being safe for everybody, right? The next thing he talked about was trigger discipline, right? And that means, I guess, and again, I'm not a gun owner. I'm just using my context, common sense clues, because I'm a grown man, right? Trigger discipline. So I'm assuming he means when to pull the trigger and when to avoid pulling the trigger. You can see his finger is clearly not on it, and it's almost like resting outside of the trigger so that he doesn't make a mistake. But again, that's another practice. When to do this, and when to start doing this. I think that's what that means.
And death, where you point the firearm and keeping your fingers off the trigger and all that. So I wanted to just point out a couple of things that we see most often, you see most often probably, people do, and we're using the airsoft so that we can do that safely, of course.
That, I think, was maybe a version of one of the rifles the guy was shooting at the gun range I visited. I think that was one of them. He had a scope, so it was a legit hunting rifle, but it was loud.
And we can do it with any firearm that's unloaded, of course, but since we started with the airsoft, we'll just stick with it. And I think some people just don't realize how easy it is to point the firearm at something you didn't mean to do. I mean, I could even do something kind of subtle here. If I came out there and started this video a little differently, like, let's have a little fun with the Glock today. Let's see, what are we going to shoot? Let's go over there and shoot some. A lot of you would not even notice what I just did. I just brought that gun down, dangled it, and I either pointed at my foot or came very close to it. And some of you wouldn't have noticed that. I'm about to shoot. All right, what do we want to shoot? And I go there and shoot. Now, some of you experienced shooters, there's been a lot of ranges, or you've been in competition, it would have, whoa, what's Hickok doing? But
yeah, and again, us watching this, if you've never had gun experience, you probably wouldn't have noticed. Probably would have just thought, yeah, he's just holding it like a power drill, just waiting to get turned on, waiting to use, right? But that's not how guns work. And unfortunately, at least from my little minimal experience, that's something that you have to have a practice for. You have to understand, what your gun's doing. Is it maintained? It's kind of like a car.
Fortunately, a lot of you wouldn't have even flinched at that, all right? And that's called dangling, when you just let that gun dangle down like that.
And you see this a lot, at least in my experience, in like Western movies or action flicks, where the person just yelling, "No, I'm gonna get you," and then they just kind of just waving the gun all kinds of places. That only really works if you're that crazy of a person.
Speaking, and this is taught different ways, everybody's a little bit of different program, but it's all basically the same. You don't want that firearm to be lower than about 45 degrees. You don't want to be pointed down here very much. I mean, that's not tragic right there, but very ideal. I think when I was doing IPSC competition, it was like a 45-degree angle. You want the gun down about like that.
And so that's actually something I never knew. Now that he's pointing it out, my mind is recalling all the time I've seen people standing like this. I've seen probably like veteran soldiers standing like this, either with their rifles or pistols, and sometimes in the movies and video games and things like that. But I never knew it was for that reason. And what I'm assuming is the reason is that if you point it downward and something goes wrong, the bullet can ricochet. And if you point it forward, obviously you can be pointing at something you don't want to hit. So if the 45-degree angle, the bullet should either bounce away from you, which is the ideal thing, or just kind of like lodge itself into the ground. I'm assuming, I don't know. But that makes a lot of sense that you would train shooters to stand that way.
No, not really any closer to your body, pointing any closer. If it went off right there, it's not going to be great. It might knock some gravel out that way or something. Down here, if it went off or you fired it, it doesn't go off. That's the main thing, right? It doesn't go off. Your finger has to be on the trigger to make it go off.
Okay, so if you've never used a gun and people be like, oh, it accidentally went off, it doesn't go off. And this is a veteran gun owner telling us this. We'll probably hear this more often as we explore more gun videos, but guns don't go off. The trigger pulls the pin, the hammer hits the bullet flies out the barrel.
But you could actually hurt yourself down here. You get ricochets right back up at you or something, okay? So that's why you want a little bit of angle on muzzle discipline. And then just point it at the target always. One thing with revolvers that people do, and I see a lot, is this one's unloaded. They're shooting here, and okay, let's take a shot at that. Let me cock it and shoot something else there, and they like that. Well, right there, look at that. You're shooting, you're in the act of shooting, you cock again, shoot. Your finger's actually on the trigger, and it's cocked, and look where it's pointed. Over the hill. They might even turn it a little bit like that, or do that. Let's cock it again. Wow, that thing's pointed way off range and up in the air.
And look at his hand. If you pay attention to his hand, he's not doing this. He's just showing us an example of bad trigger discipline. So it's on the trigger, and he's saying for this revolver, when you cock it, it's possible that you could wind up pulling this while it's cocking it. So there's another practice to reloading that you have to understand. Now, why am I doing this? Why am I even exploring this for you guys on a music channel? Because you need to understand this in general. It's just good information to know. But then also, for you young musicians and artists and things like that, there's going to be images of weapons. just in, throughout your career, whether it's on TV, you could be doing a fucking commercial for cowboys or something like that. It would behoove you to understand how this works. And then, of course, the common rapper hip hop scene where everybody's pointing guns at the camera. A lot of people in those music videos don't understand this basic information, like myself. Like, if I went to a music video as a musician, trying to be a musician, not even thinking about gun ownership, and you started pulling out weapons for the music video, I would be misinformed based on my experience. So this video is going to be helpful for you guys, and make sure you go follow them so you can get some education, probably get a class with them or something.
My fingers even on the trigger. It's very simple to do that. So you want to work on that discipline, that muzzle discipline. Remember that laser. Where is that laser touching the ground? Always keep in mind that I've got an imaginary laser, and it's going to be.
And that laser he's talking about was this tool they had on the Glock earlier, which is, I believe, right as he switched it.
They're shooting here, and okay, let's take a.
Oh, it was just before this, right there. This right here, I guess this is a way that they can practice and kind of figure out where the muzzle is going and things like that. That's that laser that he's talking about.
Imaginary laser, and it's going to be painting the ground wherever I'm pointing this. It's over there in those leaves right now. I'm imagining it. And if I get it like that, it's over that hill. Okay, if it comes down here, it's painted right there. I'm seeing a red dot on the ground. I'm seeing a red dot over there, okay, wherever it's pointed. So be careful. When you cock that thing, try to keep it right there on that hill. Or wherever you are, whatever the.
And notice when he was reloading, that was actually kind of interesting to watch. When he started reloading right there, or cocking it as he was firing, he didn't move the muzzle. He actually kept it very, very steady while he was fire, cock it, fire, cock it. Like, I've seen that in recent video games, but again, that's probably because actual gun owners started to participate in the making of video games. That was the thing in video games, where like when you reload it, you would have to remove every kind of visual you had of your target, look at the gun, put the bullets in the magazine, and then load it back up, and then now you can aim at your target again. It's only recently did video games get that part right. Why did it take so long? It's because we probably didn't know what to point out as a problem. We would have just been using guns like that, all improper. But yeah, watch how he fires this, and it was just something I noticed. He pulls it up, cocks it back, fire. Still on target, cock back, fire. Still on target, cock back, fire. That's pretty awesome. And you got to pay attention to stuff like that, especially if you want to be a gun owner. Because let's say he needed to use this revolver, he needed to clap somebody, and they were running at him. Like, and you sitting up here missing because every time you cock the damn gun, you're changing where you're aiming at.
Or wherever you are, whatever the range is within the area where you're allowed and it is safe to put bullets. Okay? That's the big deal. So pointing upwards is not necessarily safe. You might be risking a neighbor, all right, a house, a car, whatever. Where's the muzzle pointed?
And that's the key thing about the whole thing, is that you could be risking a neighbor. You could be risking an innocent bystander, which we see a lot in a lot of these gun crimes, where people just start hitting kids and women with stray bullets, or innocent men going to work and things like that. There's just very low disregard for that practice of being good at the thing you're supposed to be good at. And this translates into what we talk about here all the time as musicians, is to practice your instrument, but practice it with intention. Like, just don't go in there just playing around. Like, for example, we just learned in this short video what muzzle discipline is, trigger discipline is. It's explained the laser, understanding how to point whenever you're resting your weapon. We learned what sweeping is. We learned a lot of information in this little bit of video. Now, if you go out and apply it, that's where you get better at it. And that's the part of being intentional about your practice. So like with this video, let's say he went out into that same shooting range and all he did was just shoot all the targets, reload his guns, reset the target, shoot all his targets, and then that's it. He didn't practice no trigger discipline. He didn't do no reload drills. He probably didn't even do no push-ups. That would not be a good practice, right? So I'm sure by this point in his shooting career, he has some kind of regimen to make sure he's on point with his skills. And I want you guys to have the same kind of mindset when it goes into your musicianship, and also when you're going into the same type of lifestyle. Like if you want to own a gun for yourself, maybe for your career, or you're a rapper and you're trying to be gangster and be in the streets and things like that, You can be a successful gangster in the streets if you know what you're doing. So make sure you do. And so that's it for me, y'all. If you enjoyed this, make sure you like and subscribe here on this channel. This was another episode of Musician Talks, where we talk about why you are not a shooter for real, dog. And let's get it.